morning, students. So how is the new year treating you? Hope you all are liking your new class, new books and studies. So today I'll be taking your science class. I'm Sonia Akhtar, teacher of Maths from KG School, Uttara, Sector 7. We have started the first chapter of science. The chapter name is Living Things and Environment. The topic that we have covered in the previous class are reading practice from page 7, book activity and book exercise from page 8 and 10. And we have learned the fill in the blanks, some difficult words and short question answer. So hope you all have practiced and learned those topics. So let's take some feedback from you. These are few questions from our previous class, which is CW number 2. So I want to ask you the questions. First question is, what do living things need to survive? Living things refers to anything that are alive. Maybe it's human or plants or a small ants. So they need something to survive. What are those things? The question is, what do living things need to survive? I know you people have studied, you all know the answer, so I'm giving the answer now because as I am not being able to take the answer from you right now. So the answer is living things need food, habitat, shelter, air and water to survive. So food is something they eat and get the energy. Habitat is a special place where animals live and plants can grow. And shelter is made by the animal. They make the shelter for themselves so that they can protect themselves from the adverse environment, from the bad environment. Okay, and from the air, plants take the carbon dioxide, make their food, gives off oxygen, and that oxygen is taken up by the animals or by the humans, and the humans, animals gives off carbon dioxide, and we all the living things need water to survive and grow. So what are the 5 things living things need to survive? They need food, habitat, shelter, air and water to survive. Now what do plants need to make their food? Plants need 3 things to make their food from the environment, and those are sunlight, water and carbon dioxide. With the help of these 3 things, they make their own food. Okay? So the third question is a fill in the blanks. A place where animals can be safe is called dash. What will be the answer? Yes, the answer is shelter. A shelter is a place that is made by the animal. Animal makes the shelter to protect themselves. Okay, so a place where animal can be safe is called shelter. So let's move on to our today's class. Our today's classwork number is 3. We are going to discuss the same chapter, living things and environment, and our discussion will be on broad question answers, and there will be 4 broad questions that I will be discussing. Okay, before starting the broad question answer discussion, let's just go through the topics we have learned till now. Then you will be easily able to recall that what are the topics you have learned in the previous discussion classes. You have learned about the environment and living things. Then you have known what are the things that living things need in order to survive and grow. They need food, habitat, shelter, water and air. Then you have learned about the necessary conditions that plant need for growing or for surviving. That means you have learned about the importance of sunlight and water through an experiment. Then you have learned that how plants make their own food. After that, energy passing through food. How the energy is passing from sun to the animal. You have learned the energy passing through the food in this chapter. Then at the last, you have learned about the causes and the impact of environment change. So let's just move to the discussion of today's class. These are the broad questions that we are going to discuss today in this class. The first question is, what are the causes of environmental change? We will know the reasons why the environment is changing. The second question is, what are the differences between habitat and shelter? The third question is, describe about the needs of living things for survival. And the last question is, how do plants make their own food? So let's start our today's discussion class. What are the causes of environmental change? So before talking about environmental change, we have to know what is called environment. Everything that you see around you and every event that is happening around you makes up the environment. You see the sky, you see the pond, you see fish in the pond, you can see trees, human, animals, everything making up the environment. Now, if you observe, you can see changes in the environment, and we consider two reasons responsible for these environmental changes. First reason is natural disaster, and second one is human activities. Now, let's talk how the natural disasters are changing the environment. Natural disasters are some natural events that can damage our environment. For example, we have learned about storm, drought, flood, earthquake, etc. are some example of natural disasters that can cause damage to our environment. Many people die because of these natural disasters. Now, what is a storm? A storm is extreme weather condition because of extreme wind, and along with that you can see rain, thunder and lightning. Now, when this storm takes place near the ocean, we call it cyclone, and when it takes place in land area, we call it tornado. Every year because of storm, many people, cattle die, and this cause a huge loss to our environment. Now, let's talk about what is called flood. Flood is a condition when everything goes underwater. It happens because of excessive rain. Okay, so during the rainy season, when there is excessive rain, everything goes underwater. So what is the result of flood? Road goes underwater, houses goes underwater, people cannot eat food because their lands, their croplands are going underwater because of the rain, excessive rain, which is turning into flood. So people die also because of flood. Now let's talk about drought. What is a drought condition? A drought condition is extremely dry condition when there is not raining from a long time. As a result, what happens in that area? Animals die. This is a huge loss. So that's how the natural disasters are changing our environment. Okay, so next reason is human activities. What are the human activities that is changing our environment? See, we are cutting down trees. What are the purpose? Why are we cutting down trees? Because we need fuel, we want to make furnitures, we want to make buildings. That's why we need tree. That's why we need wood, and we cut down the trees. And you know that how much trees are important for our environment. So this is one of the human activities that is changing the environment. We also clear the forest because we need land. What are the purposes we use the land? We use land for cultivating crops, or we also use the land because we want to build houses, we want to build roads, factories. That's why we clear the forest. We need the land. and if we cut down the trees, it will cause great loss and damage to our environment. Lastly, we change the environment because we need natural resources. Soil is one kind of natural resources. To get the soil, we are cutting down hills. To make roads, we are cutting down the hills. Also, we are digging the hills because we need natural resources, like we need coal. So that's how, when we want the natural resources to use, we are also damaging the environment. So what have we learned from this first question? That there are two reasons which are responsible for environmental change. First one is natural disaster and second one is human activities. So I hope if this question come in the exam, you will be able to write it properly. So now you can ask me that, ma'am, why are we talking so much about cutting down of trees? Why are we so concerned about the clearing of forest? Is that so important? Yes. Now let's talk about it, that how a forest is important. Think of a forest. In a forest there are a lot of trees. Now every day we make carbon dioxide. We produce carbon dioxide. How? From the vehicles, from the factories. Every day carbon dioxides are being produced, and carbon dioxides are not good for our health, for the animal's health or human health. So what trees are doing? Trees are using up the carbon dioxide with the help of sunlight and water. They are making food and they are producing oxygen, and oxygen is important for our survival. We breathe oxygen, we take up the oxygen. Now you know that the forests are one of the habitats of plants and animals. A lot of various kinds of plants and animals live there. So it is one of the best habitats for birds, plants and animals. So what if we are cutting down the trees? That these birds will not get the food to eat. They will not be able to make their shelter. Their habitats will be lost. So they will not be able to survive here. Either they will die or they will leave the place. So when we are cutting down trees for many purposes, like we want to make furniture, we want to use for fuel, we are cutting down trees because we are in need of land. We want to make food, we want to produce food for ourselves or for our cattle. So what will happen? The amount of trees will be reduced. But trees are important because that can absorb the carbon dioxide, that use up the carbon dioxide from the environment. So now when we are cutting down the trees, the amount of carbon dioxide will be increased in the environment because trees are not there to use up the carbon dioxide. So what will happen? The amount of carbon dioxide will increase, and carbon dioxide is a hot gas. As a result, what will happen? The temperature will increase, and the birds who were living in the forest, because of the trees they could get the food, they were able to make their nest, they will leave the place. And one important thing, which is plants strengthens the soil. It gives strength to the soil. It also holds up the water from the ground. So when we are cutting down the trees, the soil loosen up its strength. Sometimes it happens that when we are cutting down the trees from the mountain, the soil becomes very weak and they slides down, and we call it landslide. You know the definition of landslide, that when a huge part of soil from the ground from the hill falls on the ground is called landslide. So these are some kind of natural disasters. A landslide is one of the natural disasters that will happen when we are cutting down hills or we are cutting down the trees. See, this is how a lot of thing is related with human activities. When we are cutting down trees, there will be temperature change, the temperature will increase, the many birds and animals will lose their habitat, so there will be a change in the environment. That's why we are talking again and again about the environmental change because of our human activities. Let's move on to the next question. In this chapter, we got to know about habitat and shelter. Second question is, what are the differences between habitat and shelter? So at first we should know their definitions. So what is a habitat? A habitat is a special place where plants grow and animals live in. Now you tell me, where do you live? You will live inside house, but your houses are on land because this land is your habitat. If I tell you go and live inside water, you cannot live there because a pond or water is not your habitat. Pond is habitat for fish. Fish are living there naturally. So pond is the habitat of fish. They can live there naturally. They are getting every necessary things that they need for survival from the water. So habitat is a special place where plant grow, animal live in. Now if we talk about a shelter is a place that is made by the animal because they want to feel protected. They want to make them safe from bad weather condition or maybe from the predators. So when the animal feel the necessity of being safe, they make the shelter. So a shelter is a place where animal can be safe. So if you see the pictures, first picture shows that a fish live inside water where it gets everything it needs. So water is the habitat for the fish, but the fish cannot survive in the land because this cannot live here. This is not the habitat of the fish. Okay, now in the second picture you can see the nest. A bird makes the nest when it feels that it needs to protect its egg from the bigger bird. Then it makes the nest. So a nest is the shelter of a bird. Now all living things, the second point is, all living things need habitat and all animals need the shelter. Now even if it's a small plant, it's a small fish or bigger plant, everything needs a habitat, a special place for that plant, for that small plant or for that small fish where it can live or where it can grow naturally is its habitat. And every living things need the habitat. When we talk about a shelter is made by the animal. So animal needs the shelter and every living things means the things which are alive, they all need habitat, a special place to grow, and for animal they need a special place to live. So every habitat is needed by all the living things and every animals need a shelter to feel protected. So third point is, habitat is created naturally. That means there will be no touch of human. The habitat is made naturally so that the animals can live there, the plants can grow there. Okay, but whereas on the other hand, shelter is created by the animals on their requirements. Suppose a bird need a nest because it need to protect its egg. We cannot live in nest, right? We need a house. So a house is our requirement. We make a house according to our requirement. But the requirement of a bird to make a shelter is a nest. So animal creates the shelter according to their requirement. So here we have learned three differences between habitat and shelter. Let's repeat it. What are the differences? A habitat is a special place where plants grow and animals live in, and a shelter is a place where it can be safe. Second point is all living things need a habitat and all animals need a shelter. Third point is a habitat is created naturally, and for shelter, a shelter is made by the animal according to their requirements. So let's move on to the third question. So third question is describe about the needs of living thing for survival. That means what are the must needed thing that living thing need to survive. There are few things. Those are food, habitat, shelter, water and air. In this question we will learn about all those necessary things. Now first point is food. We eat food not because food tastes tasty, but because we need energy. We get the energy from food, we get all the necessary nutrients that are important for our survival and grow, we get from the food. Now where do we get the food? We get food from plants, we get food from animals. Now plants also need to have food. They can make their own food. Okay, so plants can make their own food by themselves, but animals are dependent on other animal or on plants. Next is habitat and shelter. We have already talked about habitat and shelter. What is a habitat? A habitat is a special place where a plant can grow and animal can live in. That happens naturally. And a shelter is a place that is made by the animal in order to protect themselves. Okay, when they want to protect themselves from a predator or from bad weather, they make their own shelter. A nest is the shelter of a bird, and our houses are shelter for us. Okay, we make the shelter according to our requirement, but habitats are made naturally by the Almighty. Okay, every small plants to bigger plants, every small fish to bigger fish, every small animal to bigger animal, they all need habitat. Okay, next point is water. Water is one of the most important thing for the survival of plants and animals. A lot of functions of animal depends on water. Animals cannot digest food if they do not drink water, and plants make their own food with the help of sunlight, water and carbon dioxide. So water is very needed. Next point is air. Air is very important for living things, both for plants and animals, because plants are using carbon dioxide from the air to make their food, and they are giving off oxygen. And what animals are doing? Animals are taking the oxygen from the air and they are giving off the carbon dioxide. So air is very important. From the air, plants and animals are getting their necessary gases. So the last and fourth question is, how do plants make their own food? From this chapter we got to know that plants make their own food. So let's learn how. Plant cannot grow well without sunlight and water, because with the help of sunlight and water and along with carbon dioxide, it makes its own food. A plant needs sunlight, water for proper growth. Another thing which is important is carbon dioxide. It takes the carbon dioxide from the air, and with the help of these three, it makes the food inside the leaf and it gives off oxygen. So that's how it is making food by own self, by using sunlight, carbon dioxide and water. And animals are dependent on plants or other animal for food. So in your book, here is a picture like that. Whenever you get the question in the exam and you want to answer, you have to draw the picture to get the good marks. To explain the process, you have to draw the picture that how the plants are making their own food using sunlight, carbon dioxide and water from the soil. This is not part of your broad question. I'm showing you this thing because I want to clear your confusion about a thing that you get confused between which gas, carbon dioxide, is released by plant or it is accepted by plant, oxygen is released by animal or it is taken by the animal. So this picture I am showing you to clear the confusion. So oxygen and carbon dioxide, animals or humans takes the oxygen from the air and this oxygen is released by the plant. When do they release the oxygen? In the food making process. And when human or animal takes the oxygen from the air, they give off carbon dioxide, and plants take the carbon dioxide from the air to make their food. So I hope if you keep this picture in your mind, you will not be confused, because this is very important for question and multiple choice question, fill in the blanks, and also for your whole life. You have to keep this in your mind. So now it's feedback session. I always keep telling that whatever I show you in the sample question, sample broad question, is just a sample. It's directly not going to come in the exam. Maybe there will be small changes in the question, they will be asked in the exam indirectly. You have to understand. So let's see. A question I have given is, human activities and natural disasters are responsible for environmental change. Explain. So how are you going to explain it? What I am asking in the question, you have to understand that. I have told you that there will be small changes. I will ask you indirectly that. So what you have to do, you have to read the book so that you can answer, you can understand what I am asking for. So the answer is, I am asking for the reasons, the causes that is responsible for environmental change. So can you relate it with the first question? Yes, the answer is same, but you have to understand that what I am asking for. So I am asking for the causes of environmental changes. You have to answer that human activities and natural disasters are responsible for environmental change. Then you will explain what are the natural disasters that are responsible for environmental change and what are the human activities that are responsible for environmental change. Okay, so that's how there will be small changes in the question. You have to understand. So homework from today's class is, you have to learn all the broad question and you must read the whole chapter also. And there is a writing from today's class, and this is broad question 1. The question is, what are the causes of environmental change? So what you are going to do, you are going to write the question answer with proper date, write the homework number is 1, and write properly, take the picture and submit it next day in your section group. Hope the topic I have discussed today is clear to you now. You have to learn the whole chapter if you want to answer broad questions in the exam, because these are some sample broad questions. These are not directly going to come in the exam. So you have to learn the whole chapter. Even if you have any question, any queries, you can ask in the Zoom class. Your subject teacher will try to solve your queries. Thank you for paying attention in the class. Take care of your health, do some studies, and hope to see you soon. Goodbye.